Right. I mean, I guess we're giving away the punchline, which is here's Lindsay.
Hi, it's me.
That's it. No, I'm kidding. Hey,
Yeah.
Alyssa. So we are here today to share a little bit about just the process. Elise said, "Oh my God, it's Lindsay! So excited for you." A little bit more about the process of. We'll kind of refresh you on Golden Ticket. Sabs is obviously here because she is the holder of the Golden Ticket. Linz is the. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
I wonder where
Sorry, mine was getting like lots of noise for a second.
Okay. So we will talk about that. And then we also have something very exciting to share about literally. So I'll kind of just start that now for a second, which is Lindsay is our Golden Ticket winner, or coachee, or whatever you want to say. I hate saying winner because I feel like it feels like a game or something, but
I like to be a winner. It's okay.
You're like, I win. Thank you. But she is not going to be our podcast guest for this season, which we will talk about. So I have kind of a surprise on that later. Oh, Elisa just said, does it mean you're the literally coachee? No. So she is not going to be on literally with us this season, although I'm sure it would have been wonderful. But we all kind of jointly agreed that we felt like Lindsay's audience, her stage in business, all of those kind of things were just a little too close to Michelle's from season 6 to sort of make that like the most valuable for our literally audience. And we are always doing our best to think about that. And it was just like really beautiful because we all kind of jointly agreed on that. I think Lindsay even said that maybe in her application. Am I right? Yeah.
Well, I said later, it was so similar. Hearing season 6, I was like, it's like you're talking to me. And so I was doing a lot of the same things. And so as I was filling out the application, I was like, well, if it's going to be a literally, like, I'm not going to get picked because it's just so similar. So yeah, I wasn't surprised at all.
So good. Okay. So we will circle back to that at the end, but we kind of want the majority of this to be about Linz and get to talk to her and get to know her and also talk about the Golden Ticket process. So Lindsay, maybe you could just introduce yourself really quickly to everyone and tell them who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So hi, if I'm doing the full thing, I'm Dr. Lindsay Kavanaugh. I am a psychologist and military marriage coach, and I help military spouses have the marriage they truly desire and feel good in every day.
So good. And Sabs, I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but maybe just share what you're doing here.
I am the creepy third wheel. I am the person who won the auction for the Golden Ticket back in January. So as the owner of the Golden Ticket, I had an application process for people who wanted to apply to lease it in fall 2022 and process those applications and was able to select a winner, and we selected Lindsay. So that's why I'm here, just to kind of talk about the behind the scenes process of what it looked like selecting a winner, receiving applications, how we made that decision, what that looks like.
Yes, I think it's really important for us to be as transparent in this process as we can be, because I think that's what we tried to do with the NFT. Initially, if you guys, I think about this all the time, if you guys missed the live stream that Sabrina and I did when she won it, and you want to talk about really knowing the behind the scenes of what a psychopath Sabrina is, you should go listen to that.
Thanks. Love you.
Love you.
Grateful.
#facts. Lindsay even said in her application, she was like, because she was our second runner up, so to speak, in terms of the auction. And she said that after she watched that, she was like, yeah, I get why I was never gonna
I didn't stand a chance.
Yeah. Michelle said that live stream with you, Sabs, is a whole lesson in mindset. Yes, it really is. It really is. So basically, Sabs, you got the Golden Ticket. We've been really transparent about that. And then so we just want to stay really transparent. I think one of the things we asked of anyone who took this spot was that they would come on this live stream with us. I think we'll do one halfway through and one at the end too, because we just want to keep like sharing about this, since I think it's really different and not something we see in our industry a lot. And I think it's interesting that there's like 3 of us involved. And so maybe you could just start, Sabrina, by sharing a little bit about like how you structure the application process.
Yeah, so the application was, I feel like, pretty holistic just in terms of the questions that were asked. So what I was looking for was I wanted to get a really good idea of who everyone was. And so I was asking for things like social media links, website links, and then just more general information about their product suite, content strategy, what they were struggling with, what some of their goals were. One of the things I asked for that Lacey laughed about was
why I'm laughing.
A headshot for everyone, which I actually think was supremely helpful because I could really put a face to the name and a face to the application. And I feel like I now have like creepily known every single person super well who applied, which was really cool.
I actually will give that to you. At first, I remember I messaged Megan, sent me the application that you had sent her, and I messaged Megan and I said, what the fuck? Why are we asking for a headshot? And Megan was like, I have no idea. Ask Sabrina. And I thought she was being crazy, but it was so insanely helpful in the application process to just be able to be like name to face and feel like there was like a connection to that person. So I was totally wrong there. You were right.
Yeah. So I thought it was helpful, and just like you could really, I feel like, feel the energy of that person through their picture as well, which was really great. And you're like, oh, I can totally see how this person is like this great relationship coach or this great this. And then we added in a couple of questions as well that your team sent me around things like availability, time zone, and if they would be willing to do the Literally podcast. So we also added in those questions.
Yep. And initially had really intended for the person to do the podcast as well as the golden ticket space. 1, because we thought that would be cool to showcase, but 2, because I also am trying to be super strict with my time boundaries because of having Bennett. And so Sabs was like really understanding about trying to accommodate that. But at the end of the day, it just seemed better to be able to not make that like an absolute requirement. So that is what led us here. So Linz, maybe just tell us about your thought in applying. Like, I think one thing that you did, Sabrina, that was interesting. I got a shit ton of questions about like, how much is it going to be? How much is it going to be? All of that. And you didn't tell anyone. I still think obviously no one would know what that is. And I don't even know that we have to share that. I don't think that's the important part, but I think that it's interesting because you kind of have to like take a blind leap of faith to apply to a certain extent, because you're like, I have no idea Sabrina could be charging $5 a month for this or $50,000 a month for this, right? So I think there's just like something there in terms of like really needing to have that context in applying. But I think that everyone who did it as just like, hey, I want to find out more about this. So Linz, maybe tell us about you applying, and then also like not knowing what the cost would be when you were applying.
Yeah. So I guess just even as a little backup,
let me interrupt you for 2 seconds because I didn't say this. 2 things. One is, if you guys have questions you want us to answer, make sure to tell us. I will save them and make sure we do that. And then 2, also remember, if you comment today, the $100 gift card thing, we do it every week. Y'all know this. I just love to say thank you for being here. So that's a thing today too, is the $100 gift card. So, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Linz.
Okay. No. So I had done a few coaching things with Lacey. So I had done a VIP, I've done an intensive, a few things, and we did our VIP weekend in December. And I remember saying, okay, for 2022, like I'm manifesting like Lacey's going to be my coach. Like that's just right. I was pregnant, she was pregnant, but that was just going to happen. So it's just sort of when the NFT came to be that, you know, I was super invested in it, not only because of that, but just my, you know, we have some Ethereum already. My husband was really into it. He got super excited about having something we could do with it. for a split second of a time, I really thought I was going to win it. And then Sabrina came in and I realized I was not even close. However, it was just like a really fun process. And so I feel like I was kind of invested in it because of that anyway. Like already going in, I was like, this is my spot. I want this spot. For the application, I think because of that, I mean, I would have had to maybe turn it down had it been some astronomical number, but I also knew that, you know, that wouldn't be the case. And I just sort of trusted that it could work out. I think I even said yes to you, Sabrina, that I was in before you even told me what the price was. So not only did I do the application, but I said yes before that even came out. I was just so invested in doing this process all the way through.
So cool. I love that. And I think that that's sort of like what something new like this takes almost, is that mentality, because I think that like it's really easy to kind of be like, well, only if I can see all of the steps, or only if I know every piece of the process. And I so get that. But I think with something like this, it was like we had no idea what the auction was going to be like. And then we had no idea what it would look like to lease the spot. And so we're just figuring out all this along the way. And so I just like think it's really cool that you were willing to go along for that part of the journey, instead of it being like, nope, it has to look like this. And not that it can't, like, I totally get that. For some people, there's certainly a cap to like what they would say yes to. And I'm not necessarily suggesting there shouldn't be, but I do think that like you just kind of really put yourself on the line that way, and just being like, I'm just really here for this no matter what. And I think that was really cool.
Well, and I mean, I should say my husband is also deployed right now, so our communication is really limited. And I got the email from Sabrina, and I luckily had like 5 minutes where I finally got to talk to my husband. Literally, we hadn't spoken in forever. And I said, I got the golden ticket. And he was like, done, you're in. Like, I had no other details yet. But it was, we had that 5 minutes. I got to tell him. He was excited. Yeah. So even he signed on with me without knowing any of the details.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So
everyone's saying like such deep trust. Yeah. And determination. Yes. So I think like Sabrina, maybe you could speak to that, but I think you were a big Lindsay fan from like before she even sent in her application, because one, you stalked everyone that had participated in the golden ticket auction, but two, because she participated so fully. So maybe like share that piece a little.
Yeah. So I think before we even received a single application, told Lacey, like I texted her, I was like, so it's going to be Lindsay, right? Just because like I know how excited Lacey has been about the idea of working with you, and like how much you have invested in her and her business, and you're always on the live streams, you were super involved with the auction. So like we were definitely very open-minded throughout the entire application process. And like we'll talk more about decision making and what that looked like. But I think I definitely had kind of an intuitive nudge that it was going to be Lindsay, just because I know when I really want something, I'm going to get it. And I could sense that Lindsay had that in her. And like, if she needed to fly to Scotland and like knock on my door, she was going to do it. Like, I just had that sense that like, if I don't give it to her, it's going to be dangerous.
I love Scotland. Love.
Yeah. So, see, she's like, I will. Do you need me to? Yeah. But I think there's something to be said for that, right? It's like, you know, when you play full out, like it's noticed. It's noticed. For sure. Yeah. And that energy kind of carries itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It really went into like my business too, right? Like if I can show up for myself in this like behind the scenes application, like I definitely can show up. So even just noticing, I have my first conversion event today after maternity leave, and just how I've shown up has been so much different than how I've shown up before. So even just seeing that like bleed over. Yeah.
That's so fun. Michelle said, how could you not be a big Lindsay fan? And also she was on The Price is Right. So that's,
that's true.
There you go. Yeah.
She's in Edinburgh, Morgana.
Yeah. Even once we like actually got Lindsay's application, like it was like very detailed. It was very like comprehensive. Like it was very compelling. Like I think you did a really good job of just like selling yourself. And I think also for us, like we'll talk about decision making more soon, but for me, like I also wanted to make sure they would be a really good fit for Lacey as well. And I knew that you definitely were. So it just felt like a very easy yes. There were definitely a lot of, great candidates. So it was for sure a hard choice, but also at the same time, it was a very easy choice.
Yeah. So yeah, so let's talk about that. So I think, well, one thing I want to say about the application before we move on, because I think it was really interesting, but what I think you did, Lindsay, I don't even know if you know that you did this or if you did it on purpose or if it was strategic or not, but I think it was very smart, is you wrote the application to Sabrina specifically. And I don't think anybody else did that.
No.
And I think that was really interesting and compelling in a different way, because it really felt like you were like, I know who this is. I know who's making this decision. I'm going to think about that. And it just reminded me of like the difference between like just putting in a job application or like making it very tailored to like a specific company or whatever. And I just think that you did a really good job with that. And I think that's like a good lesson for us all to take, whether it's like an application or a pitch, or you want to be on someone's podcast or whatever. Like, are you thinking about the person who's reading it? Shit. In your content, are you thinking about the person who's reading it? Like, I think you just did a really fantastic job with being like, who's going to read this? And can I like take that into account?
I mean, and I guess when I was doing it, I knew that Sabrina was doing it, and I guess I knew maybe she was going to be checking things with you, Lacey. But overall, I was like, I'm talking to Sabrina here, and I think I even had said like how annoyed I was originally losing the golden ticket, and that's why I'm back, because it's that, it's the same determination that she had that I'm showing now.
Yes, so good.
And I think that was really powerful for me to read, because I was like, oh, I relate to her. Like I understand her. So I think that also just made it so much easier for that to kind of be, the winner, the Lacey, because I felt like, okay, I get her. Like I like her. I know Lacey's going to like her. I know she already does. So it's like, check. It was great.
So let's talk about decision making. What do you want to share there?
It was definitely challenging, as I said. I think that like Lindsay pretty much immediately was always the top choice, but at the same time also like there were so many good choices. And I think what complicated the decision making was trying to prioritize the person who gets the golden ticket also doing the podcast. And, as we shared earlier, for anyone who maybe joined a little bit later, is that, we kind of all mutually agreed that Lindsay was very in a similar place to where Michelle was. And so Lacey always tries to do something different each season with Literally. And so what I did is we got it down to 3 finalists, and we wanted it to be Lindsay. But we reached out to everyone saying, hey, if you're selected, would you still be interested in doing it if you're not on the podcast? Because if Lindsay said no, then it's like, okay, well, now we at least have, backup options. And yeah, I think that one thing I will say is we did not at all consider income, which I know we did ask people to say what their income was and like what their income goals were, but that wasn't a part of the conversation at all, which I think, that might be something people would have assumed, but we didn't even, we didn't talk about that at all, Lacey.
No, one of like the foundational principles that I try to operate the revenue share off of is that I don't take that into consideration, because I think that is just the easiest way to mindfuck yourself, especially if you have a revenue share model of trying to be like, who seems like they're making the most, and then because you just never know. I mean, when I met Sabrina, she was basically like a little homeless
rat.
animal on the side of the street in Bali. Like, who would have thought, But not that Lindsay, that you're a homeless rat, but you get
I hope I will go gladly from a homeless rat to where Sabrina is right now. I'm in.
Sign me up. But like, you just do not know these things. And I think trying to base decisions off of that is like a recipe for disaster. And it's also a recipe for getting clients that you've just picked because you thought they were going to make you money that you don't really love working with. And that's not how you make money together either. So yeah, I think that's important to say. Elisa said, I'd love to know how many people applied if you want to share. Yes, we're happy to share. So we have 38. Is that right, Sabs?
38. Yeah.
38 applications. which like I think is really interesting because I feel like you could hear that, and either to some people it sounds really low or to some people it sounds really high. I didn't even have an expectation. I figured the one reason I figured it would be lower, no matter what you want that to mean, because we weren't saying how much it was going to be. I think it's very much something that people assume is out of their price range a lot of the times, and it could be. So that makes sense. But I think that it was really cool to know that 38 people were like, I don't even know what I'm applying for, and I'm still gonna apply. Like I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And it was definitely like a very wide range of applicants. Like we had people at 0, we had people at 30K plus months. Like it was a really big range. Yeah, so I mean, I didn't decide the price until like 2 minutes before. So Lacey would message me and she was like, so what's the price? People are asking. And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, so I can say, I don't know. I'm like, well, you don't know. I don't know.
Like none of us know. I'm like, okay.
And I think that was a good mentality going into the application process, because I think we also weren't questioning like, well, can this person afford it or not afford it? Or like, are they making, you know, enough money that it's a big revenue share for Lacey? It was purely just who do we think is the best fit, period. And that was like the only thing kind of leading decision making there.
Yeah. Shantae said to me, that sounds incredibly high. How exciting. And she says, congrats, Lindsay. Yeah, totally. I think it's all perspective, right? And, you know, I think if you compare it to like whatever we have, I don't even know what we have at this point, but like say over 450 people on a wait list, that's not even 10% of the people on our wait list who applied. But I also think it is a little bit of an interesting mentality of like, okay, if you're on the wait list, do you only want it if you know it looks a certain way? Do you want it to pet? Like there's nothing wrong with any of that, but it's just an interesting exploration where I think sometimes we do that in business too, where we're like, well, I want that thing, but I only want it if I know this. And like, what if Sabrina was going to be like, JK, it's $10 or something? Like, you know what I mean? Like nobody knew. And she does crazy shit like that. So you never know. But yeah, I think that was just really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's why probably in future I won't state what it's going to be in advance, just because I want to see like who's going to show up for the process, because I think we have been figuring this out completely as we've been going along, like building the application together, figuring it out. We were also trying to figure out, do we want to interview people? It was like a big conversation Lacey and I had. So I think at the point that we whittled it down from like 38 to 6, we were like, okay, do we want to interview everyone? And the thought being behind that is like, normally when Lacey takes on a client, she would have a sales call with them. And it's like, okay, but should Lacey do that or should I do that, since I'm the one who has the golden ticket and is technically making the decision? And I know Lacey super well. So I feel like I can feel out someone's vibe and be like, yep, you're really going to vibe with this person, or like, not for you this time. But then we got it down to 3 people and we felt pretty confident that we didn't need to do that, but we might do that in future.
Yeah.
So just since we're figuring everything out as we go, I think recognizing that Lindsay was really open to meeting us in this process, and like, it didn't need to be like perfectly in a box meeting her expectations. Like she was just kind of like happy to be a part of it and figured out with us, was really great to see.
Shantae also made a good point. She said that the reason she didn't apply, she's on the wait list, but the reason she didn't apply is because she's currently working with a one-on-one coach. And so I think that's important to say to everyone, just as a level set too, which is like, you know, that you could have a ton of people on a wait list, but only a certain amount are even ready at any given time. And so I think that that's really just an important level set too, because I think that sometimes in our brains we think, oh, there's 400 and something people on a wait list, so that means at any given time 400 people are yes, and that's not how it works, and that's okay.
Totally. I mean, I have already like opened up a little tab in my Airtable for like application spring 2023, and then there will be fall 2023 and spring 2024, and you know, people are going to be ready when they're ready. And I think that's the cool thing about the golden ticket, is like another opportunity will come around, and hopefully we can kind of get it on a calendar so people know when to look out for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but yes, that's true. Elisa said, how did you end up deciding on price point? Like what made you kind of like make that decision at the end?
So for me, I looked into it. So at the time that I placed my bid, Ethereum was at $29.97 US, and I bid 7.5, which was $22,477.50. So obviously I've made a really big investment, but for me, I didn't feel pressure to make that back immediately or even let's say year one. But I did have an intention going into the golden ticket auction, which was I wanted to cover my base rate payments. And so for me, I was kind of going back and forth on the number of, do I make it a little bit lower? Do I make it a little bit higher? So like, should I make it higher just to set expectations for future? Do I make it a little bit lower? But I think for me, I wanted it to be around-ish the, let's say, $5,000 to $8,000 mark, just because for me, I wanted it to cover, as I said, my base rate payments.
Yeah, perfect. I love that.
So it was, yeah, that was the mindset. It's like, I'm not necessarily looking to take a profit. I just want to kind of cover that coaching expense.
Yes. I love that. So Michelle said, I'm seeing a big theme here around being willing to take steps toward the thing you want before it shows up. I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back, back because we're like, well, if it's not this thing, it's not good enough. But sometimes the steps are part of creating the thing. 100%. I think, Lindsay, you could say that was totally true for you, right? It was just like, you're like, I know I want to work with Lacey, so I'm just going to take the steps like it's happening. And we'll see what unfolds from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the timing for me also was really good in a way, because I am just, as of September, coming back from maternity leave. I actually had a deposit in with a one-on-one coach who I loved. And I said, hey, do you mind if I push it back 6 months? So we hadn't started yet. So it was kind of like everything aligned for me as well. But the decision, I mean, was an easy one for sure.
Yes. Michelle said, even just seeing how Lindsay went after the NFT and then did the intensive, was in your mastermind, etc., like being active on these live streams and in the community. Right. I think I'm someone who loves to build relationships. You guys know this. I talk about this constantly. Michelle had very much built a relationship with me before she was on season 6. Lindsay and I have. I'm not saying that's a prerequisite, because Sam and I didn't have a relationship beforehand. I don't think no one else fully. Monica, I think I had done one session with Ever, so it's not a requirement, but I do think that of course that's smart if you want to be in someone's, circle, to do the things to be in their circle. Right. And I think that it's something that's easy to not do, but it really does make a difference. So I'll just share for me, I think what I feel very lucky, Sabrina reminds me of this often, but it's true. I feel very lucky that she got the NFT, because I think you did a beautiful job of really taking me into consideration with this. I think you could have just picked, and you were really good at you even were good at checking time zones with people and stuff, because you wanted to make sure I had childcare during that time and all of that. And so I just feel incredibly fortunate, because obviously I gave up a seat in my business, and I think you could have just as easily been who's willing to pay me the most, and who cares where they live or if they're a fit or whatever. And so I'm just really glad that you took all of that into consideration. And so for me, that felt really helpful, because I felt really supported in the process. I think I was wavering a lot on the podcast, no podcast idea. And I feel like you really sat with me through that and were very patient. I think you would have made a decision days earlier than I did probably, but I was still kind of sitting with it.
Yeah, I am glad that I did get the golden ticket. And I remember when I was talking to Paul about it, at first he was kind of well, you already have a coaching spot, and that Lacey would never get rid of you. And I was like, I can never repay Lacey, so I'm just gonna do whatever I can to just try as much as I can, So yeah, I'm definitely glad I got that. But for sure, I mean, because you have to remember, I had everyone's income, so I could have just emailed the top 4 earners and been yo, it's auction time. Who wants it? Who wants it? And I'm sure that there are people who would have been here, this is how much I'll pay for it. But for me, that was kind of against why I wanted it. I wanted to also make sure that, because it is such a radical idea, right? To just give up a spot in your business. And it could have been someone who is just going to sell it to the highest bidder, or who is just like the meanest person on the planet or whatever. So I was like, I'm going to protect Mommy Lacey. And, you know, I think it definitely worked out really well. And I'm really proud
You're
of
making
how you
everyone
handled it.
cry and giving all the love vibes.
You all get virtual tissues. But yeah, I think we did handle it really well behind the scenes. You were definitely like wavering a lot, like, and there was a lot of like question around like the podcast and making it work and like time zones and all of that stuff. So I think it was fun to for once be on like the back end of that and kind of like coach you through the process in a sense, and like hold space for you to figure out your own decision. I already knew what you wanted. I knew you were going to pick Lindsay. I was just like waiting for you to say that you were going to pick Lindsay, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Which I think is also really cool, is that like for honestly, like for me, I was letting Lacey guide the decision. Like if Lacey had said one person that, you know, and I didn't think that, well, actually, let me flip that. If I had said someone that Lacey didn't like, there was no way, not didn't like us and like personally, but just for the client's relationship, there was no way that I was going to push that on her. Like there was no way I was going to make a unilateral decision, been like, okay, here's your client. Like it was very collaborative, but also very Lacey led.
Yes, I appreciate you. And you did hold a beautiful space for me. Thank you.
It was fun.
Shantae said she missed it, but is Lindsay the next coachee for literally? No, but stay tuned because we have a little surprise on that. So,
Yes.
But Lindsay's still going to do, we're going to do a live stream halfway through our time together and at the end, just to kind of like update y'all on the process. I think that'll just be really helpful along the way. And just good to see. But yeah, Michelle said it really couldn't have worked out better for me. And I agree. It really did work out. Very, very grateful for that. Like, and you know, I think again, it's like you said earlier, Michelle, it's like the theme is like sometimes you have to take a gamble and take the risk. And like sometimes it will really pay off. And like obviously, you know, the NFT thing was a gamble and risk for me. It could have gone very sideways and it didn't. So that's amazing. And I feel lucky that that is how it worked out.
Well, and I'll say, even as somebody on the wait list, it's also really good to have somebody like Sabrina, because we know it's probably going to be one of us, right? One of us that have been on that wait list and want the spot. I think that it helps us to know that, you know, it will go to someone who wants it and has wanted it.
Yeah. Well, we also decided that we were going to prioritize the wait list. So the copy that I sent to Lacey's team was, I said, please send this to your wait list. So eventually when Lacey said, hey, let's consider the golden ticket person for literally as well, that's when they started promoting it publicly. But originally the decision was it's just going to go to the wait list anyway. So I think in future, just assume like if you want the golden ticket, you should be on the wait list, because we are going to prioritize someone who has a relationship with Lacey and her community and is invested in showing up in that way.
Okay, so everyone has a lot of literally questions. We will tell you in 10 minutes, but we are going to share.
We do know who it is. We will tell you who it is.
Yeah. So, okay. The last part that I kind of want to talk about is, Lindsay, like for you, just like, how are you feeling about the process? Like, do you feel more pressure because of it? Do you feel less pressure? Were you relieved you were not on the podcast? Did you want to be on it? Like, just share with us kind of like your perspective in that.
I think for me, because there was a question on there that said, would you also be on literally, and like a yes or no? And I had said yes, but mostly because I just wanted to coach with Lacey and not necessarily like I wanted literally. So if that was like the end, then yeah. Again, I was always like, oh, our seasons would be so similar. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking knowing that. So no, so in many ways it's kind of a relief too, right? I get to sort of have my private space where I can freak out. I have my own podcast and I try to be as forthcoming as possible. So it's sort of nice to have a supportive space that is not, exactly, is not public. So I think it worked out well in that way.
Yeah, I totally feel that. Like, I think that it really has to be like right thing, right time, I think. And I've really seen that with like past literally participants where Michelle, you're a really good example of this, right? Where it was like very much like the right time. Because we even had one where Michelle was almost season 5, I think. And it just wasn't the right time. And so I think that that's really true too, where it's like, just because you're like, yes, I want to coach with you, like that's really good. But we also want to do the podcast because it's like really the right time to be on the podcast. So I think that that like worked out really well, where like you would have done it, but it wouldn't have been like you were like, oh my God, I'm on literally. It would have been like, okay, I'm coaching and that's great. But this is like a
Yes.
whole side thing I have to deal with.
I wasn't going in saying I want to be on literally. I
Yeah.
was going in saying I want to have Lacey as my coach.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, it would be unheard of to even go through the application process, not having done any coaching with you, because, you know, you don't know if, you know, how things would go. So I feel like for me, that also helped the trust. I know how I work with you. I know the kind of person that I want as a coach. And so to me, I think it just made the decision that much easier.
Yeah.
I think what was also nice about that is I could tell that you saw the value in the golden ticket and you wanted the golden ticket. You weren't necessarily saying like, I want to be on the podcast. And so like being able to see the value and the utility of that separately versus thinking like, oh, this is just the podcast application was really nice for me as well to see. But I also think just a takeaway from this is, you know, in future, if you do apply for the golden ticket, you don't have to be on the podcast if you don't want to. Don't feel like, oh, I shouldn't apply because it's going to have to be a podcast guest. So just, I think, being transparent about how you feel. So 4 out of 38 people said no, they didn't want to be on the podcast.
Yeah, only 4. I was actually shocked by that.
Yeah.
But also I waived my base rate. So I'm sure that people were like, oh, okay, great. Like I'll see what people think about that too. Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have turned it down. Like, let's
Yeah.
be real. But yeah, but it's okay that it's that isn't the way that it's panning out.
Michelle said, Michelle, that's right. We
Oh.
talked about this Michelle not being the right time at season 5 on her live stream reveal. So that's in here if you want to watch that. It's on my website too if you want to search it. But yeah, that was a really good conversation.
I think I was just going to say, like, after I got it, like when I was talking to both of you, it was like, this feels groundbreaking to me. And I really wanted to be part of that because it wasn't just the coaching. It was this brand new NFT. I just wanted to be part of it. And I really wanted to be the first one for whatever reason. And that was a huge piece of this. When I put originally in the manifesting, like it was Lacey as my coach, but also, I mean, I really got into the NFT like more than I thought. My husband's happy because now I'm like, ooh, did you see it dropped? And we should, you know. So
Yes.
you created a monster.
Oh, so good. That's so fun. It's been a wild ride lately. So
Yeah, it sure has.
Okay, so anything else that we want to add there on that, or is it just to be continued from here, do we feel like?
I think to be continued. I think I'm definitely excited for like a midway catch up from Lindsay, and also, you know, at the end of the 6 months. And I think one of the reasons why I asked and Lacey agreed to do this with the golden ticket person is obviously we all can see the value in coaching with Lacey. You know, I've been with Lacey almost 6 years at the end of the year now. So I definitely see the value, but I also seeing value in the golden ticket and like how I called it, like the fast pass to Lacey land. Like Lindsay definitely saw the value in that. And I think she'll be able to tell us more as she goes through coaching, like, obviously, why does she see coaching with Lacey so valuable, but also why is the golden ticket itself so valuable?
Oh, Michelle has a good question before we move on. She said, curious what the relationship between Sabrina and Lindsay will look like over these 6 months.
I think I told Lindsay, you know, like Lacey's the best, but if you ever need anything, reach out. So like if Lindsay came to me and she was like, can you give me feedback? What do you think? Like, can you help with something? Like, obviously, like I'm there and I will support her in any way that I can, which is, I think, nice just to kind of think of me as like this fun aunt in the background that you can come to if you need
She's
help.
like your fun drunk aunt. No, I'm kidding.
Thanks. I'm the fun drunk aunt that she can ask questions to and reach out to, and I'll, you know, probably send her a check-in email every once in a while. But yeah, I just kind of see myself in the background there, like I'll support in any way that I can. So yeah, and I think that these live streams will obviously be a great way for us as well to just get updates, because I want to hear in real time some of these updates as well that are happening.
Yeah, totally. And Sabrina's been like really interested in just checking in. Like she was asking, like, have you had your first call yet? How's it been? Like you've just been like really engaged in it, which I think is really nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Elisa, are you still here or did you have to go to your class? Let us know if you're still here. But you are for sure the winner of our $100 gift card today. Because you, my friend, guessed correctly. And we are also looking at our season 7 coachee over here.
So,
Yep, she's still here.
Yes,
Good,
Elisa,
good.
I will be on the podcast.
So we'll tell you guys more of this story later, because it is a whole story. And we're going to do a separate live and obviously we'll share more, but, this was so not intentional, I guess, is a funny way. Everyone's so excited.
It was not at all planned.
No.
I'll just share from my experience on the background is I saw Lacey really kind of struggling with the decision-making process because she really wanted it to be Lindsay, but it was also really convenient for her, for the person to be on the podcast. Protect Mommy Lacey Brain Goes In. So I submitted an application for the podcast. And she was like, what the fuck? I don't know. Like, are you trolling me or what is this? And I was like, no, I'm serious. So, and also aside from like, it would be very convenient for Lacey to not have to add a second person for her client roster. I thought that it would be a cool opportunity. And it was something I had considered in the past. Yes, I even submitted an application, the whole thing. And Lacey was like, I don't know if you're trolling me or if you just know me really well or you're tricking me. Like, so yes,
very confused. Like I saw a thing from Sabrina and I thought she had emailed me or something. And I was like, what is that? And I click on it and I'm like, wait, she submitted a podcast application and then she filled it out really well. And so I messaged her. I was like, are you fucking with me? Do you just know me really well? Are you serious? Like what's going on? And I was very hesitant at first.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of a no at first.
Yeah.
Because I felt like we're equally protective of each other. And so I got very like worried about like how would that change our relationship dynamic? Would Sabrina feel as supported as she needed to, whatever. But I feel like we worked through a lot of that and I made her sign a document.
Yes, she and my husband signed as a witness, basically saying if I feel uncomfortable, I have to tell Lacey. But yeah, so I'm very pumped about the process. And I think it's kind of fun in its own way because we had said that we were going to prioritize the podcast with the golden ticket. And as kind of the auction winner, it still ended up being connected to the golden ticket and somehow. So that was really cool.
Yes. So we have a lot more to share on that, but just wanted to kind of like tell you guys a little bit about that today because I thought it would be really fun. Everyone is so excited. Elisa said she knew it because she saw me smirk. I know I have the worst poker face. When I saw you say that, I was like, oh, I don't know what to do right now.
I saw you smirk too, and I was like, oh no.
Stop giving it away. We had already told Lindsay, by the way, so that's why she's not surprised right now. Because we wanted her to obviously know as well. But yeah, listen, I think that this will be a very interesting season. I think that you will get to see something that just have never been done before. I think Sabrina is being maybe braver than any golden or any literally coachee before. Not that it's not all takes that, but I think like at a certain point in your business to share the back end is really different, especially when you have a certain amount of visibility and everything. So I think it's just going to be really exciting. And we've already started recording. So I know it will be really exciting. And Lindsay, I think someone asked this earlier, Lindsay and I have already started. We have had one session together too. So Sabs and I have recorded 2 sessions for the podcast. Lindsay and I have had one. So it is all in motion. So this is just all very exciting. And we're just happy that you guys are so excited for us. Michelle said it's like The Bachelor. This is the most dramatic season yet.
Yeah, it really is.
Yes. So yeah, Sabs and I will obviously be back to share more about literally Lindsay and Sabs and I will all be back to share more on her journey, and we will just all keep you posted and be as transparent as possible. So Lindsay, if everyone just wants to like follow you and follow your journey, where can they do that?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at Married to Military. And my podcast is also at Married to Military.
So good. And Sabrina, where might they find your beautiful face?
If you want me, you'll find me. You'll track me down. I'm
Or
everywhere.
it will be at this, what is it? The Sabrina Phillip.
Sabrina and Phillip.
Sabrina
Yeah.
and Phillip, duh. Okay.
I will show up in Scotland. Don't tempt me.
Or you could just
can't
go to
wait.
her house in Scotland. Either way.
I can't wait.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here. I feel like this is just like so exciting and really in service of everyone. So appreciate you taking the time to do this today. All right,
Thank you,
guys. Have a
everyone.
beautiful week. All right. Bye,
Congrats,
guys.
Lindsay.